warm welcome to Bharata First. You're watching Big Picture with me, Frank Rausen Pereira. Since you're here, please like the video, subscribe, hit the bell icon, and share the video as well so that more people get to know about Bharata First. Do subscribe to our newsletter to get some incisive content. The Bharata First team runs several quizzes. You can participate in them. If you like our content, please contribute to keep it alive. Let me also take this opportunity to inform you about Bharata First Knowledge Center, an initiative that will help each one of you in your competitive exams and transform the way you learn. Go to kc.bharatafirst.com for more details. Experience a whole new way of gaining knowledge. Hundreds are already reaping the benefits of the Knowledge Center. Don't be left behind. Don't miss out. Register right now as there's so much that we have to offer. All this information, along with some must-see recommendations, are in the description of the video. Please go through it. Well then, maintaining that the Indian Air Force remains capable of tackling the two-front threat, Air Chief Marshal V.R. Chaudhary said on Tuesday that the Chinese Air Force is still deployed at 3 air bases facing eastern Ladakh. He said discussions are going on for disengagement between the two countries, but the Chinese infrastructure development is going on at a very high rate. Ahead of the Air Force Day, the new IAF chief, addressing his first press conference, said China's forward deployment can change because of the development, but it will not make much of a difference for the Air Force. Asked about Pakistan and China developing airfields close to India's borders, Chaudhary, referring to airfields in POK or near the border with Afghanistan, said, "We don't need to get much alarmed about it right now. They are small strips capable of taking on a few helicopters. The airstrips near the Afghanistan border," he said, "cater to that region." In this edition of Big Picture, we will analyze the situation at the Indian borders and how ready are we to tackle a two-front threat. Joining me on the program today are RVS Mani, author and internal security expert, Air Vice Marshal Sunil Nanodkar, retired defense expert, and KV Prasad, senior journalist. Thank you to all my guests for joining me on this edition of Big Picture. AVM, let me start the program with you first, and let's take this in the context of what the new air chief has said about the border with China. Let's not forget, we are trying to sort out the border dispute with China as well. We've had many rounds of talks on the border to try and sort out some kind of a bilateral consensus as far as our border itself is concerned. How would you look at this, and what would you make of what the new air chief has said?
Yes, Frank, thanks, and good evening to all your viewers. New chief, after taking over on the 1st of October, he, I think, addressed a conference 2 days back, and he covered a couple of things when asked about China and two-front war. One is that he categorically said that Indian Air Force is prepared to fight two-front war, so which is a big assurance to the nation, and we will take it further from there. When he says that we are prepared for two-front war, I think last two chiefs, if we follow the statements of previous two chiefs also, what they mean is that we are prepared in terms of training, we are prepared in terms of whatever we have to fight with it. That does not mean that there is an adequacy, because in the same conference, chiefs spoke about requirement of 42 squadrons and or 45 squadrons. And he also said that next decade and a half, we are not going to have that number available to us. And as per him, in the coming decade, we are likely to touch 35. Presently, we are hovering around 29, 30. And these numbers are important if we have to really look at two-front war. So when he says we are prepared with whatever we have right now. So that means there is going to be a crunch of resources, but there is going to be a shift of resources if required, as and when required. And that is what flexibility of air power is all about. And he categorically, stated that. That is one thing. Secondly, he also spoke of new inductions, the latest induction and what is forthcoming. as far as indigenous products are concerned and what is forthcoming as far as new inductions are concerned. So that is, he spoke about LCA, the next 83 that order has already been placed, and he also spoke about the RFI that has been floated for 114 aeroplanes. I'm talking about just the fighters. And mind you, continuously on the other side, we have the transport, the heavy lift is already with us, and the medium lift is already, the CCS approval has already been given. So, and on the third front, that is on the rotary wing side, a lot of orders have been placed to with HAL, because HAL is now doing a good job as far as the rotary wing aircraft production is concerned. And also there is additional, helicopters coming from outside. So all in all, if we see the aircraft as such, he touched upon all these things, and that is how he is confident that next decade and a half, all these things should fructify. And I'm sure that successive chiefs have spoken to the government on these and appraised them on shortages and what is the plan that they need to follow. Mm-hmm. And knowing the past history of aircraft inductions, both indigenous as well as bought from abroad, I think this constant, dialogue between the Air Force and Ministry of Defense is required, and Ministry of Finance has to support it for induction of platforms. On the other side, he also spoke about S-400 induction this year, which is going to be a major step as far as country's air defense is concerned, and that is a responsibility of the Indian Air Force totally. So he spoke about S-400 induction, and that is one of the big things that is going to be handy in terms of deployment in northern and northeastern borders.
Absolutely.
Also, he spoke about the infrastructure that is coming up on the other side of the border, and
we'll come to that in just a bit. Yeah. We will take that up in the next round. Let me go across to the other panelists as well in the meantime. So, Mr. Mani, these internal security apparatus and the internal security mechanism has changed, especially if you look at our western border. Ever since we abrogated special status on August 5th, 2019. So how do the internal security dynamics play out when we look at external security, especially in that region?
Security is a single, basically it denotes a single thing, how to secure the nation, internally, externally. And now over a period of years, the challenges have blurred. The difference between the two have already blurred. Now, on the question of internal security, the challenges or the threats perception will increase with Talibanization of the Afghanistan and the common axis between the jihadis, the Talibanis and the ISIS and all that. With the ISI support very blatantly there with them. Having said that, the question again is, are we prepared? At the same time, there is a China-Pakistan axis which is also posing the challenges resulting in the given situation of a two-front war. When the Galwan was happening, there was incursions, there were attempted incursions through the Kargil side of Pakistan also, so that we could choke the thing. But on a current account basis, current capacity to capacity, first thing is, let me make one thing clear. There was always a myth which was perpetuated. I don't know what were the reasons, who are the forces, that Indian security forces were not up to the mark when it came to Chinese attacks. But that myth has been blown away, and Galwan has been an eye-opener. Doklam, Galwan have been. So Indian security forces, Indian Army, Navy, I'm sure AVM Sunil will also second me, that on a current account basis, we are able to face the challenges, accepting for the fact that few misses may be there, but we are able to make the challenges. But the fresh inroads being, besides that, after the last few years, there has been a lot of infrastructure and accessibility to the eastern borders have also increased much better. Now the roads are there, motorable roads are there. It is much easier to approach, faster to approach and all. On that front also, there has been a lot of progress over the last 6-7 years. But having said that, we need to not to leave the security apparatus or security funding to the whims of the politicians or policies of particular party. We have to have an inbuilt mechanism. See, given the Indian defense budget is not something to write home about. Let's be very, very clear about it. I personally have been advocating this, that let us fix an amount, 3% of the GDP or 4, any number, it could be a number. Why don't we have a policy like that? That it shall be 3% of the GDP or 2% or 4% of the GDP, excluding the expenditure on pension. That's number one. And procurement and defense acquisition and police procurement, all these, of course, from 2015, the manual for procurements have come out much more rationalized than what it was hitherto. But still, the delivery at the hand of the security personnel is still quite time consuming. It is not timing. These are all challenges we need to address, very, very important. Thirdly, how many we on the budget front also, in terms of Indian Air Force also, new squadrons were supposed to be due long time back. They have not been raised. New battalions have to be raised in the army. The new reinforcements have to come. They have to be sanctioned, and the sanction procedure for a new battalion in the army or a new squadron in the Indian Air Force, I'm sure Mr. Sunil, again ABM Sunil will also second, is a very, very long time-taking and a bureaucratic process that needs to be rationalized. These decisions have been, or some sort of, with a lot of safety checks and criteria, it should be given to the Defense Secretary or Air Force Chief how much squadron he will do. Let us also be very clear. We have quite a few cantonments on the Indo-Pakistan border, but very few of the cantonments. I don't think much cantonments have really come up in the post-independence area. Most of them are inherited cantonments. Defense cantonments have to come up, Air Force stations, and that have to come up well spread out, especially in the Indo-China borders. There are very few. It is all left to the ITBP battalion centers and the SSB battalion centers to handle this. The reinforcement will come much later. The first responders continue to be them, and I don't know how much of skills they are vested with.
Sure.
So new cantonments, say something like Dehradun or Badrinath cantonment, or something like a Srinagar cantonment in the Uttarakhand. Similarly, some cantonments in the Air Force station in the Sikkim area, Natula, near Natula. Some Air Force stations have to come up. After, I don't think beyond Jorat there is any big Air Force station of note or such capacity.
Sure.
These type of things have to be there. This is where the capacity has to be built, and to build that capacity as a matter of government policy or a policy statement or a mission statement, it should say whatever be the GDP, there should be 3% expenditure on defense, and that is omnibus, non-obstante, it should be made. That is what is my submission. Thank you.
Points taken. Let me take the points that you're making forward with Mr. KV Prasad. Now, KV Prasad, let's look at these issues holistically and look at what is happening on the India-China border, especially in the Ladakh region. And we've seen after everything that has happened over the last year and a half, that several rounds of talk have taken place between India and China to try and sort out the border issues. Are you happy with the way things have progressed? And let's not forget, there is a trust deficit when it comes to China, because history has shown us that we have to be wary of what China says and what it does.
Well, very long years ago, maybe probably 15 years ago or so, the then Prime Minister, Dr. Manmohan Singh, had made a statement in connection with China. He said, trust but verify. So I think something what you just asked, the question of trust. Now, having taken that policy, there are 2 or 3 issues that do crop up from it. As we speak, probably in the middle of October is a scheduled 13th round of talks, which will kind of again take forward the disengagement process as India and China are looking at since the Galwan incident of April 2020 onwards. Now, there have been a couple of hotspots which there has been disengagement, the Pangong Lake area in particular, and then the Gogra Now, the hot springs is still remains an area of concern, and I think these discussions have not yet taken forward. Meanwhile, as you have realized, and probably everybody does reading reports, China has built up troops in that region again. And as a countermeasure towards the September, middle of September, India too put forward many more troops, boots on the ground. Probably some numbers which came up was something like 50,000 troops. Just not the troops, we have the howitzers, the undersling the Vajra K9 tanks. So India is also putting equipment because it does not want to be caught in a situation which can be difficult to get out of it. So that is it. Is it an offensive position or is it a defensive posture? Well, these are issues that can be debated, but the strategic planners do have an idea in mind, and they have put forward this kind of situation. That is why we are in the current position. On the political side, on the diplomatic side, there is enough discussion on this issue that, if you remember, even about a year ago, the Indian policy from the political establishment and the diplomatic was differences cannot be turned into disputes, should not turn into disputes. So that has been a guiding principle. While you have differences on issues, and we all know, the fellow panelists do it know very much, the LAC is undefined. And now, but what is it, the signs that are worrying is what has happened recently, probably again reports unconfirmed, in the mid sector. Now, mid sector is some place where we have exchanged maps very early. The issue of western borders on the eastern sector is where the maps were not exchanged. This was stated as far as year 2000 or so by the then Defense Minister Jaswant Singh and the Foreign Minister Jaswant Singh in the Indian Parliament. So there is, the border issue has been long pending, continuous. The special representatives are talking on these issues from Mr. Vajpayee's time, which was then by foreign ministers, and I think then as special representatives. Right now, the Indian NSA heads the Indian side. This has been a work in progress for a pretty long time, but I don't think it has reached any end where either side, at least India, can say it is satisfied.
Absolutely. AVM, coming back to you now, and let's go back to a point that you were making earlier about infrastructure on the other side. This is something that the Air Chief spoke about as well, talking about how the Chinese are still deployed at 3 air bases facing Ladakh. They also continue to build infrastructure, and there is no sense of backing down as far as China is concerned. How would you look at the infrastructure being developed and built on the other side of the border, and how do you believe that we should react to this? Unmute, please.
Thank you, Frank. Chinese have gone about planning of build-up of infrastructure very categorically, very systematically. These 3 airfields were just about, once in a while use airfields. From there, as of today, there is a permanent operation that is going on from all the 3 airfields. So that's a development that has taken place in last 10 years or so, and which is quite a significant development as far as deployment against India is concerned. Now, it is not only the airfield, the logistic support, the road and rail infrastructure, all these things have added on systematically to ensure that the operations from these areas take place unhindered. Now, that is something that we have been watching it. It is not that they have suddenly come up without notice. So we have been watching, we have been monitoring the operations that take place from there, the exercises that have been conducted between Chinese forces and Pak forces in this area. So all these things are known, very well known to us. Now, that also there is a systematic deployment of missiles in this region. Okay, and that is something that is one of the causes that we have to take into account if it comes to warfare on both fronts. So I think all these things add on to make the Chinese very formidable in this area. Now, what Air Chief also spoke is about the continuous operation in terms of weight of attack from these airfields. These airfields being at high altitude, there is always going to be some kind of restriction on the number of launches and the kind of weight of attack that Chinese can put through from these airfields. So that is something that is advantageous to us. And what we need to do is, we all know that there is a lack of, Mr. Mani spoke about it, that there is a lack of infrastructure on our side, and we have taken suitable steps to work towards it. But the pace of work is what something that we need to look at very seriously, because the pace at which we are building the infrastructure is not suiting the deployment requirement of both ground forces as well as Air Force. So that is something that we will have to look at. And that if we strengthen the infrastructure on our side in terms of requirements of airfields, operational airfields, the advanced landing grounds, and also the roads and bridges is what is going to help us in terms of sustenance of operation should there be a need. So I think there is a lot to be done from our side on infrastructure development, keeping the what the developments have taken on the other side.
Absolutely. Mr. Mani, going back to the broader issue of two-front threat now, how serious is it? And do you believe that we are going to see a little more adventurism from Pakistan going forward, especially considering what has happened in Afghanistan? Because it seems like the Pakistanis and the terrorists operating out of Kashmir are that much more emboldened after what they believe is their victory in Afghanistan. I say this because there have been at least 7 civilian deaths in the past 5 days in Kashmir. Terrorists have gunned down people whom they believe are not going according to their whims and fancies and kill them in cold blood.
Indeed, I think we have spoken about this earlier also, that where we had flagged it that the Taliban takeover of Afghanistan is a trigger for Pakistan to do more adventurism, and it is not going to be simply across the border in Kashmir or landing drones and all. It will be much larger than that. So the two-front war, the challenges on the western border is certainly there, especially focused on Kashmir. And as our famous diplomat, first secretary in the UNGA had already spoken, arsonists will come in and work out as human rights fighters, freedom fighters. And that is a 110%, it's a statement worth its weight in gold. Having said that, western border, the challenges are there, and that's a permanent challenge. At the same time, my co-panelist spoke about the bilateralism and others, everything. I have also found, even in a first thing is we need to be in a position of strength to get any headway in a bilateral discussion with any of your neighbors. Even with that also, you don't have great experiences. Whenever the Pakistan peace talks have happened, we have been backstabbed during the currency of the peace talks by the Pakistani ISI and all. It has happened. We have repeated instances, Lal Masjid, 2611, RSS headquarters, Shamjeevi. You can take so many examples of that in 2000s. That's number one. Number two is there are a lot of records of Pakistanis, even non-combat delegations coming into India and doing not so palatable things like getting into drug peddling and all that. We had 2006. So that on that area, 2006, the champion shopping traffic case, where two of their own cricketers were found peddling drugs, and ultimately. So these are all matters of record every time. China also has got no better record. You see, even during the 70s, also during a foreign minister's visit, the China did something with the Vietnam attack and all that. So the history is abound with that both of them are not trustworthy. Whatever may be even when you are in a position of strength, you cannot trust them. So I think flag level or the DG level or the commanding officers level meetings have got no meaning in this. They will go, then they will go back on their word. So that is the reason I never touched upon these bilateral, because I have been in part of bilateral, I have seen bilateral how during the course of bilateral discussions you are stabbed. You are stabbed. Number two, on the question of infrastructure, yes, it is infrastructures have been coming up since 2008, Pala, this Lipu Park route also, 8 kilometers from there, they have been there. They also have big upper Riparian in country in the Brahmaputra valley of the Brahmaputra river also. They can choke you with water, build power dams, so many things. They have certain territorial advantages which they will certainly exploit, notwithstanding the constraints explained by AVM Sunil ji. But at the same time, let the diplomatic or the bilateral or the talks go on in whatever seriousness in which they take your talks. But we need to invest robustly on the eastern borders also, come out with new cantonment, new air formations, the operational airspaces, so many things have to come. And this requires money, and money, you cannot leave it to the parliament. Let us get in somewhere, it should be inbuilt that 6% or 3% or let us decide a number. Let the nation decide a number. You bring that clause, then the army's motivation, the security forces motivation itself, by virtue of that number will increase. Besides that, the flow of required, because even now, of course, a lot of improvements have happened. The CRPF used to travel in ramshackle buses in 2012. Now they have got much better buses. But you cannot stop with that. You need to really go for rapid, speedy infrastructure as per matching the requirements of the security forces.
Sure.
To carry on. And the backup infrastructure, which is the states. For example, the roads now, the road to Lipu Pass or Doklam or somewhere is much better than what it was. But still, that needs to be maintained. It is in the hands of border roads should be roped in. All those areas in the Chinese border as well as this, and let us not forget the peninsula. If you are going to choke these two areas, they are not going to keep quiet. They will come through the checkpoint because Sri Lanka, the Chinese have already established a facility. So if you are going to choke and the air opportunity, they are not going to sit quiet. They will come. The mischievous fellows will come from the peninsular India also. So simply insulate it, and for that only I keep saying, being you have to be robustly prepared and keep on upscaling, because what is relevant today could be outdated in 7 years' time in the defense counter defense strategies. So that needs to be again upscaled repeatedly on a timely basis without any
delays.
Public fund is for the public benefit. Do it. That's it. That's the only so that we inbuilt the system like that. Thank you.
Points taken. KV Prasad, taking the discussion forward now, and let's look at it from a political perspective as well. Is there political consensus really as far as our political parties and parliament is concerned in dealing with a two-front threat from China and Pakistan? Are we speaking in one voice? Is that an issue?
See, largely, if you look at the entire culture of India and foreign policy and parliament and discussions, and if you read through the debates that have gone through or attended, Indian foreign policy has been by and large bipartisan, number one. And on issues of defense, it's absolutely on one voice. Never, I mean, there could be differences, there can be disagreements on a point here or a point there, but by and large, governments of the day, when they take an action, everybody stands behind the government of the day. So it has been seen time and again. While everything is over, when you do a post-mortem, different points do come up. Could have this aspect be handled differently? Could have been handled better? But that's a fair way of looking at it. After all, everybody wants to improve from where we are and go and make sure when we shore up our defenses of any eventuality, we are not found wanting. So that has been the thing, be it the last instance of Kargil or what happened later. This is all the issues. But what is important is, I heard my fellow panelists also speak. One issue is, of course, defense budgets. Fair enough, 2.3%, 2.5%. I don't think we will touch 3%, maybe once or twice. But for that to happen, your economy should be robust. You should have a high amount of money flowing into the coffers. And remember when the time when India was really doing good in terms of economic, we had a good economic growth, 8% non, the defense expenditure went up dramatically. We were almost buying $10 billion of equipment per year. So this is there. The Navy acquired platforms, the Air Force acquired platforms, the defense forces were moving on those patterns. So you need funds, and in a country where we are unable to, in the last 70 years, despite the best of commitments, to put 6% of GDP for education. We've not been able to do that because, again, there is a commitment, all right, but where do you find the funds from? And remember, at every discussion in the debate, when the budgets were announced for expenditure, in particular capital expenditure, every government has said one thing very categorically: if funds are required, we will find them. Every defense minister, every finance minister, you look at any number of years, questions and answers on these issues have been answered in a similar format. And when the time comes, funds are found out. How they are found out? I mean, there are ways and means. So Parliament is the only place where you can get money from the exchequer. I mean, that's the only place where the treasury benches will be allowed to draw, will be permitted to draw from the national purse. So that is a position, I think. So we are there. There is a large consensus on how to deal with it. There could be disagreements on tactics, if I were to say call. But last strategy, everybody knows China is a threat. I mean, that has been more personified in the last 2 years that we have seen. Pakistan has been a constant factor. But the Chinese border, thanks to the number of initiatives taken over the years, was peaceful for almost 2 decades, till Galwan happened. So there was a certain element of in which both countries moved forward. Fair enough, diplomacy has a role to play. Quiet diplomacy has a greater role to play. Does it work always? It all depends on the intention of the person with which, or the country with which one is dealing with. Now, China today is a power which is, in its own assessment, is as good as challenging America. It's the second largest economy in the world. So they are looking at their own position in the world differently. So how do you fit yourself in the paradigm? And come what may, there is no gainsaying, but the fact remains both China and Pakistan will remain India's neighbors. You have to deal with them on those terms.
Absolutely, absolutely. You can't change geography, unfortunately, and this is something that we have to deal with. We have dealt with it for a while now, and we just continue to.
In fact, I was reminded of Prime Minister Vajpayee's word: "You can change your friends, but you can't change your neighbors."
Absolutely.
Something
Absolutely.
to that effect.
Yeah. Yes. Okay. Time to get quick closing comments now from all my panelists with the best way forward. Starting first with you, AVM.
Frank, I think Chief, while stating various aspects during his press conference, was quite confident that we can deal with two-front war should there be a need. And he spelled out very categorically as what the Air Force plans are in terms of present equipment and procurement as far as future is concerned. And he was quite confident that within a decade and a half, we should be marching towards what we desire. So I think all in all, a very welcoming address, I would say, as far as the press and the nation is concerned.
Absolutely. Mr. Mani.
Indeed, as AVM Sunil Kumar had already said that we do have the information well in advance of the infrastructure coming up like that. But the gap between the information and the counter action sometimes takes a lot of time. Now the intelligence sharing is also much faster. In spite of that, that is where the infrastructure gaps is a constraint. That is where the investments have to take place. That is those gaps, the time lag has to be identified, the reasons for that. That is one area. Again, I'm sure from new chief and other defense chiefs or the CDS will take over and give us a blueprint for that. That is something which is on a priority basis, because having got the intelligence, if you are no, it is not like the 2611 where we got the intelligence, the Indian Navy could have stopped it, but something happened. But it is not that. There are many instances where the infrastructures or the power plants or other things coming up on the Chinese side of the Indo-Chinese border still do happen. We are notified of that by the intelligence agencies, but the paper sharing, the bureaucracy and other things, even in Galwan also, it took quite a few times. There were quite a few times because middle of April or so, the intelligence had started flowing in. But the real-time action, indeed, I give it to them that the defense also takes time to prepare itself, all in spite of the preparedness. But still, there was a time lag. There was a bureaucracy, and that bureaucracy, the reasons for that should be curbed. The factors which create these type of delay, even a 4-day delay or a 5-day delay in a war front could be a very it could mean win or lose.
Absolutely.
And make no mistake, security forces have to be succeed 100 times of. It has to be 100% success. One small mistake, we do not know how many lives are lost. Their own men could be lost. We don't know how many others could be lost. So they have to be 100% success rate. You need to have this type of support mechanism from the entire country, and that's it. About this, Prashad's one small comment on my GDP. It is dovetailed to the GDP. If you generate the funds, 3% will go to the, or 2% or 1%, whatever it is. So naturally, this will create pressure, and certainly, and besides that, if you start investing like that, your own loss of mandates due to loss of productivity, due to such disruptions like the terrorist attacks and others will also get much better controlled than as a consequence, the GDP will also leapfrog. That's what is my submission. Thanks.
All right, and Mr. Prasad, close the show for us with your concluding remarks.
Well, I think it's a work in progress. I agree the pace is not the way to which probably many of the people who are in the strategic community are comfortable with, but it's a balancing of interest and prioritizing as requirements. Funds are required, yes. What is priority? Infrastructure, yes. There was a time when developing infrastructure in the eastern parts, or especially in the northeast and facing China, was looked at from a different paradigm, because at that time the security considerations were different. But now all that has changed. In the last 20 years, there has been an attempt to work on the strengthening the infrastructure in that region. So the security understanding also changes. As I said, it's a work in progress. There is no tomorrow. Technology changes by the time you catch up. And by the time the new technology comes in, something else happens. Today, we are talking on a 4th generation warfare, where these platforms may not be of the same use as probably they're used today or next 5 years. You're talking of, cyber attacks, cyberspace, warfare, things of Internet of Things. It's a different world that people are looking at. So I think this is where everybody is working on. So there is no easy solutions. It's a constant march.
Absolutely, it indeed is. All right, gentlemen, we'll have to leave it at that. Thank you so much for joining me on the program and putting things into perspective for us. Well, what's coming out of this discussion is that the two-front threat on our borders is a reality. The good thing is that we are in a position to deal with that threat. However, the position we are in right now is not desired. We still have a long way to go in shoring up our infrastructure on the borders. A lot has been done in the recent past, but there is much more to be done. We have to keep upscaling and come up with robust counter strategies. Defense spending has to go up, but that can happen when the economy too grows at a desired rate. History has shown us that Pakistan and China can't be trusted. We have to always be watchful. If there are some kind of understanding or some kind of agreements reached, they have to be verified with tangible proof. Now, before I go, once again, let me remind you to like the video, subscribe, hit the bell icon, and share the video as well so that more people get to know about Bharata First. Do subscribe to our newsletter to get some incisive content. The Bharata First team runs several quizzes. You can participate in them and improve your knowledge. If you like our content, please contribute to keep it alive. A small contribution that you make will be a giant leap for us to keep bringing you this content. Let me also take this opportunity to inform you about Bharata First Knowledge Center. It's an initiative that will help each one of you in your competitive exams and transform the way you learn. Go to kc.bharatafirst.com for more details. Experience a whole new way of gaining knowledge. Hundreds are already reaping the benefits of the Knowledge Center. Don't be left behind. Register right now, as there's so much that we have to offer. All this information, along with some must-see recommendations, are in the description of the video. Please go through it. That's it from me. See you again next time.